Well, good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to the Fashion Business Summit 2017. I'm Heather Pickard, and I'm the Acting Dean for the school, so a very warm welcome to you all. These are our fashion talks by students from across the range of courses within the school. I'm going to introduce all of them in one go, and then they will be talking for about 10 minutes on their particular topic. So this is a really highlight of the event, so I hope you sit back, relax and enjoy. So first up, we're going to have Gabriel, who's going to talk about how luxury fashion brands can become more inclusive towards consumers. He is a graduate from the BA Honours Fashion Management course, and he's very much looking at how, as Anna Wintour suggests, in these new shifting times, how can the fashion industry question itself and reconsider its position within society and the global economy? So very, very topical. Next up will be Sadia, who is from the MA Fashion Entrepreneurship and Innovation course, and she will speak about how small changes in fashion can be used to create a positive impact on local communities in developing countries. So again, a very, very topical and I'm sure very inspiring talk. Thirdly will be Kelly Smith from our BA Honours Fashion Business part-time course. And Kelly will talk about how fashion can actually spread ideas like infection to disrupt the fashion industry. So for better overall, to explore positive solutions with technology, innovation, psychology, and human empathy, which I think picks up on some of the themes we've been looking at across yesterday and certainly today. Then we'll have Maria from, again, the MA Fashion Entrepreneurship and Innovation course, and she's really exploring the influential role of the fashion industry and how the state of the most powerful sectors can actually build a more sustainable and inclusive environment. So again, a very, very key and important topic. And then last but not least is Ariana from the EMBA. And she will talk about the impact fashion can have on communities, particularly in this sector in the Andes, and the importance of safeguarding natural resources and the use of one of the world's most valuable fibers, which actually people know very little about, a fiber called Vicuna. So I think sit back and really enjoy, and I'm sure there'll be time for some questions later. Thank you very much.
How is fashion reacting to current political events? November 2015, terrorist attacks in Paris. How did fashion respond? Anna Wintour discussed terrorism effects in Vogue, January 2016. June 2016, Brexit. How did fashion respond? Jigsaw latest campaign, We Love Immigration. November 2016, the election in the US and Donald Trump. How did fashion respond? Diesel in the campaign, Make Love, Not Walls. North Face with another campaign, Walls are meant for climbing, and Anna Wintour, who clearly stated that now it is time for fashion to reconsider its position within the market and challenge itself. Now, we are in a time where fashion is very vocal to politics And we need to lead, rather than follow, our consumers for this sociocultural transformation. But this opens a big dilemma between exclusivity and inclusivity. We already know that fashion is based on the idea of exclusivity. We try to exclude part of the society, as well as create aspirations in consumer minds to be desirable. But if I include too many consumers, I can lose part of my exclusivity. At the same time, we can argue that we can include consumers, we can give a bigger representation to them, we can leverage our price points, and still we can be inaccessible and therefore desirable. This move that fashion is taking can generate two effects. On one hand, I can alienate consumers who don't agree with my point of view. I can be claimed for emotional manipulation and for jumping on a bandwagon. While on the other hand, I can give a bigger representation. I can strengthen the loyalty I have with the audience. And I can add a cultural symbol into my existing philosophy. So to this extent, a social conscience can help brands achieve more authenticity. We can make good. We can generate positive effects, although this move can be very risky. But what is life without taking the risk? So maybe now it is time to take the risk, be disruptive, and be socially conscious. Thank you.
Fashion is often associated with glamour and opulence, but we rarely get to hear the backstory. When I was a graduate straight out of fashion school in Pakistan 2010, my professor rang one day with a fantastic job opportunity. I got really excited and asked him, "Which designer is it?" And he said, "It's a company that works with home-based artisans." I was disappointed because I wanted to work with a luxury design house. He pushed me and said the job had a great learning curve. So I went for the interview, and I was shown samples of products I was to work with. Outdated beyond belief, the interviewer laughed at my expressions and said, "This is why we need a designer to modernize our brand. Are you up for the challenge?" I never back away from one. It was an eye-opening experience for me. The job allowed me to interact with artisans on a level I hadn't before, and introduced me to an entirely new side of fashion. Out of all the handicrafts the brand endorsed, and we endorsed many, the ones that mesmerized me the most were the hand embroideries. Some of that work was jaw-dropping gorgeous. It looked like beautiful paintings. Even up close, you could not tell stitch from stitch. The level of meticulousness was that high. Despite being old-fashioned in style, I found myself falling in love with the craft and developing a respect for the makers. What struck me particularly was the female artisans and the ease with which they balanced their housework while creating these exquisite pieces. Now, part of my job involved visiting villages, places without electricity, water, or telephone lines. And I had the opportunity to meet some amazing women in their 60s and their 20s, and they all led a very hard life. Yet, somehow, they'd found a way to find positivity and comfort in hand embroidery. I found that inspiring. It's difficult to explain, but they have an attachment to the craft. It is part of their lifestyle, their DNA. To put it in modern day perspective, hand embroidery is to them what social media is to millennials. Those interactions led me to believe that the only thing that's missing was some polishing, a contemporary perspective in terms of motifs and colors, and most importantly, an outlet for a wider audience. Prior to taking that job, I didn't realize that such stunning work could come off something that traditional. And truth is, a lot of people don't. Previously, an embroidered garment would be just like any other. Now, it meant a lot more. I left that job after 4 months to pursue other creative interests. But this brief experience created a lasting impression in my mind, and there was something about those artisans that really struck a chord within. One day, in 2013, I decided to research into artisan communities, home-based female workers, and the jobs that were available to them. But I was not prepared for the staggering facts that I came across. 55% of Pakistani girls are unable to attend school due to poverty, backwardness, or not having access to easy learning. Only 14% women are earning government standard pays. This breeds gender inequality. It puts us at an increased risk of violence and oppression. When half of the country's females are not being given the opportunity to acquire skills and knowledge, how can we expect a country to prosper economically and socially? In cultural setups like Pakistan, a woman is often solely responsible for looking after the house and raising the kids. Therefore, it's imperative that she be self-sufficient and empowered. There are non-government organizations and charities that have been set up to tackle this issue, but within the fashion industry, they often lack the creativity and the business acumen to be viable. Currently, there are no laws and rights when it comes to home-based workers in Pakistan, which has led many brands to take advantage and set up unethical supply chains. With this newfound knowledge, I decided to do something about it. There was absolutely no excuse for not providing these artisans with a chance. Adopting the same business model as the company I worked for, I decided to focus on hand embroidery and empowering marginalized women. At the same time, polishing the outcome by using silk threads and gold floss for a more luxury finish. The plan was to start small, set up a team of 5 to 6 embroiderers from an underprivileged community in my city, Rawalpindi, and I managed to find one such place about 15 minutes away from my house. Luckily, I got in touch with a lady who said she'd be happy to set up a meeting for me where she'd invite other females who were interested in working. I was very elated and went in expecting a few people, but the sight that greeted me was overwhelming. There were about 40 ladies gathered at that rooftop. It hit me then how badly these communities need work opportunities. Most of them knew how to sew already, but needed polishing in terms of neatness and finishing. Unfortunately, I could only pick 5, 6 of them, because at that stage, I didn't want to delve into anything big, given my limited business experience. Now, excitedly, the designer in me was going in overdrive. I was thinking of beautiful visuals of painting like embroideries we'd create. And I said to them, can you come to my studio once or twice a week? We're going to discuss the designs, and then you can work from home. They turned around and said no. I realized then that they needed permissions. Their families needed assurance that the women will be treated with care and respect. They were even invited to come have a look at the studios if they liked. And I took responsibility of picking them up from an assembly point nearby, as local commute isn't the most feasible in my city. At that stage, I did not want a small issue like this to jeopardize the entire project. To my surprise and delight, they agreed, and off we started. Now, originally, our meetings would be awkward, like taking a trip to the dentist. It would be so quiet. No conversation, they would be working heads down, just listening to what I said, never saying a word. 3 years down the road, I now have a team that's lively, talks while working, plays music, cracks jokes. Together, we've grown in a professional and personal capacity, and we have faced many challenges, made mistakes, and learned from them. And it's been a great process. They picked up English words and phrases from me, and now use WhatsApp to send voice notes and images. They've taught me dessert recipes like halwas and zardas. We've discussed politics, cricket, relationships, and everything in between. The level of confidence they have now is astounding. When we first started, I could have underpaid them and they wouldn't know any better. Now, their mental math is a lot stronger than mine, and they haggle and bargain like professionals. 2 of them saved money for marriage. One got married and moved away. She's now looking forward to coming back in the capacity of a trainer for seamstresses. My team told me about brands and boutiques not paying them after getting months' worth work from them. It's shocking. They now know that they need to get some percentage of money on each commissioned work, that they need to sign contracts, make sure they understand the paperwork, have somebody else do it for them if they can't read, and be relentless. Above all, they know that there's no shame in asking for what's their right. It backfires too sometimes when they straight up tell me I have to pay them more money on a certain piece. This has impacted the lives of us all. They've changed mine as much as I've changed theirs. And this entire journey of growth and learning has been nothing short of a metamorphosis. They've come out of their cocoons and grown wings, which is why I decided to call this the Butterfly Project. I'd like to encourage young designers to not sideline these skilled artisans as outdated or traditional, but to collaborate with them, to take on this age-old craft and be challenged by it, to find ways to modernize it and not let it fade away, because these skills are worth preserving. It is this diversity in art, culture, and languages that gives flavor to the world. Thank you.
Imagine if Edison had never shared his ideas about the light bulb. And then imagine if Newton hadn't ever shared his curiosity of the apple falling from the tree. Lastly, imagine if Marie Curie had never shared her ideas around radioactivity. I think you all get the gist. Great ideas have the opportunity to change and shape health, humanity, and sustainability. It doesn't have to be an idea. It could be a physical product. It doesn't have to be a physical product. It could be a way of life or a thought or a way of being. What I'd like to propose is a future where people like you and I come together and demand that revolution of change, because change happens when we come together. That change I'm calling Fashion 2.0. It's the next generation of fashion. And that's important because imagine, now the idea sounds crazy, but imagine a world where you knew where every single one of your garments came from? The technology already exists. The technology exists in the food industry, so it is there. But our relationship with clothing and with fashion is the sanitized high street. It's sometimes even worse than that. Our relationship with fashion these days, and consumerism as a whole, is with the mobile phone, digital screens, and then a postman bringing it to you. Often you don't even see the postman these days. We simply don't accept that lack of traceability within the food industry. We care really greatly about what goes inside our bodies, and we care less about what goes on our bodies. But actually, the skin is the largest organ. So we should care more about what goes on our body. We also care greatly about our identity. And our identity can help us depict what people think of us, what we think of ourselves. And that's really important too. So I'm going to take you on a short journey, because it can be a long-winded one, of the untold story from your clothing and why it's important on your skin. Firstly, there's the cotton. Cotton is a thirsty plant, and cotton actually takes 20,000 litres of water to produce just 1 kilogram. Now, that 1 kilogram can make 1 t-shirt. That's shocking. And if you think synthetics are better, they're not much better. Every single piece of polyester or synthetic fibre that has been ever created still exists on the planet today unless it's been destroyed. That's because it's not biodegradable. So we'll fast forward onto the spinning and weaving. Spinning and weaving is, again, hazardous to health, especially in the cotton industry. Small fibres of cotton dust can be inhaled and can damage the lungs permanently. Often, there isn't extractors, and this means that it's polluting the environment as well. Dyeing process. Most dyes aren't natural, and most dyes, again, are hazardous to health. It's been proven that some dyes can actually leak through the garment if they're not washed properly and affect the skin. A lot of dyes are washed away in natural waterways, causing a lot of pollution to environmental, wildlife, and, again, human health. Then there's the garment making. Now, this is a big one, but again, we'll go quickly with this. Garment producers are often underpaid with low wages, working in slave labor conditions, and are poorly treated. Now, that's not the same for all manufacturers. There are great examples of wonderful manufacturers, but it's not regulated enough. So people are free to do good, but people are also free to exploit that. Then we have the delivery. Now, that could be a number of ways. It could be, as you know, by air, by land, by sea. So usually by air these days, because today's fast fashion consumer wants everything now, now, now. So that's the carbon footprint of the garment. And then there's the last piece of the puzzle, which is, what do you do after you've worn the garment? It might be a garment that you love so much and you wear it forevermore. Or it might be a garment that you wear a couple of times and then it's not good enough anymore to wear. Now, if it's not good enough for a charity shop, where do you dispose of it? There's no food recycling bin for clothing. There's no equivalent. Most people put their clothes in the bin for landfill, which results in 1 million tonnes of textile landfill in the UK each year alone. So, why is this a problem? Well, aside from the obvious, it's a problem because consumerism shows no rate of slowing down. H&M, although it plans to use only recycled material by 2050, which is fantastic, they still want to increase their revenue year on year. ASOS wants to double its revenue by next year. They hit an all-time record high just this year. So it's a massive impact on the economy, but also a massive impact on the world's natural resources and workers. Is there anything we can do about it? Of course, there is lists and ways we can, stop consuming so much. Of course, we can all think about our purchases before we make them. Of course, we can all ask ourselves to be more conscious. But do we? Do we follow those lists? Do we follow that need to do better? We often don't, and the reason I've got a blink here is because of Malcolm Gladwell and his theory on humans are making a blink decision. Humans often go for the easiest route, and we work on memories. It's how we get out through our days, because if we're taking in new information all the time, most of the time we're acting on our subconscious to get us through the day. I'm going to give you an example of disruption now. The 5p carrier bag was a great disruption on people acting in that blink. When people were questioned whether they wanted before the 5p carrier bag charge, when people were asked if they wanted a carrier bag, their reaction was always yes. It was what they were used to. It's what I was used to. It's probably what you were used to. Just a yes, I'll take that in a bag. But when the people were questioned a second time or had faced a different set of questions, that's when the disruption happened. They had to suddenly think, actually, do I want to pay 5p for that carrier bag? It didn't matter that the nominal value was very low. It formed a disruptive pattern into somebody's behavior and made them think more consciously before they acted. So I'd like to invite you all now, just to, for a second, maybe 30 seconds, let's give you some time, to visualize the label in your clothing right now. It might be the label in your top, it might be the label in your jeans or your coat. Just shut your eyes for me. And then, while you're visualizing that label, I'd like you to ask yourself what you would like to know from that label. If it could tell you anything, would it tell you whether it was biodegradable? Would it tell you whether it had natural dyes in it or it had dyes that were potentially harmful to your skin? Would that label tell you who made the clothing? Would it tell you its carbon footprint? Because once we know better, shouldn't we do better? So once you've done that, I'd like to invite you, after the talks are finished, to share your thoughts and ideas with us at #FashionMeansBusiness, at Kelly Aphrodite, or at The Moral Mark, because I'd like to continue the dialogue, and I'd like everybody to come together to share their ideas, because this should be a collective response. And the recipe for success is technology, innovation, human empathy, and psychology. And if we focus on these things, we can come together and change and have our own fashion revolution. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Okay. Hello. I was a cocktail dress designer. I used to make lovely silk dresses with lots of ruffles, lace. I was inspired by magic, fairy tales, mystery, glorious flowers. 2014 changed my life dramatically. The war conflict between my beloved country, Ukraine, and Russia brought sorrow and tragedy to my house. To be honest with you, I never had a chance to become a friend with any disabled individual because I didn't know where to meet them in Ukraine. Nowadays, unfortunately, you can see them very often on the street. During my volunteering work in the hospitals, I met many young, handsome men who lost their legs, hands, arms They needed to change their lifestyles, their work, their jobs, and clothing. I realized the existence of specific requirements and unmet needs. Let me introduce some numbers. Approximately every developed country in the world declared approximately the same number of disabled people. It's 1 out of 10. NHS stated this year that 1/3 of them need to use wheelchairs on a daily basis. It's approximately 800,000 people. Okay. Just 20% of disabled people were born with their disabilities. It means that 80% got it during their life. 65% of disabled people would like to participate at any kind of activities with able-bodied. 65% of body-abled people try to avoid communication with disabled people. As a creative individual, I ask myself, how can I change this situation? What can I do personally? How can I make our beloved fashion industry more user-friendly, more inclusive, more universal? At this stage, I decided to go directly to my customers, to my target customers. I wanted to ask them about their problems, their needs, and possible solutions. I was extremely lucky and happy to meet Paralympic champions from around the world. I met guys from Britain, from Ukraine, from France, from Italy. I met disabled dancers, I met celebrities, activists. It was an incredible time. I met so many talented, gifted, passionate, strong, and determined people. I learned a lot. Every time I was so stressed out about collecting information. I wanted to get as much as possible. I wanted to ask about all their needs and identify the gap. In reality, some of them arrived with prepared answers. Some of them gave me some tips, and some of them arrived with garments and ideas how to change it. It was so easy, so comfortable. Okay, my aim was to create an ideal pair of jeans for denim or for wheelchair users, applying all our accounts and findings. We managed to do this. At the same time, my team wanted to go a little bit aside and ignore target customers' preferences. We created our experimental model. We tried so hard. We tried to be creative. It didn't work at all. So my advice to young designers, try to get to know your target customers, always. At the next stage, I realized the necessity of market research. I checked 40 brands for disabled people. Outcomes were shocking again. All my garment features, all my findings, all my inventions existed on the market. My ideal pair of jeans existed already on the market. My pride of my work was ruined. I wasn't an innovator anymore. Okay, but however, there arose another question. For the reason why cannot problem-solving garment meet target customer? Why none of my people never purchased any goods made specifically for them? I identified two major reasons. Marketing. Majority of brands for disabled people market themselves as adaptive. Who wants to wear adaptive? None of my respondents answering this question mentioned they want to wear adaptive. They said, we want to wear regular. They were keeping repeating regular. Let me tell you, I was so proud of myself when after testing period, my typical customer declared my jeans were comfortable, convenient, and they looked like regular. I was very happy. Second major reason, all brands for disabled people sell just online. Just online. While my people want to go to physical retail shops, they want to touch, they want to try, and they want this kind of communication. They want to feel as a part of community. That's it. So my questions are, what's the reason to make accessible entrances to our physical shops for disabled people if we don't keep them in our mind while creating our fashion collections? What's the reason of making bigger fitting rooms for disabled people if there is an obvious lack of clothing selection for them? My master's project lasted 4 months. 1 month for interviews, 1 month for creating, testing, 1 month for market research, of course, 1 month for writing. So basically, just 3 months to create a product, to prepare the product to enter the market. It's not a lot, yeah? So I'm still very positive and optimistic. I truly believe that one day our fashion industry will realize that manufacturing inclusive denim or manufacturing inclusive French is essential and obvious. One day, I believe that our famous departments will add an extra line, extra shelf for permanently sitting postures. That's it. Thank you.
Do you know what a Vicuna is? No. This is a Vicuna. It's not an alpaca. It's a cute cousin of the alpaca. And as with the alpaca, it's also native to South America. How did I ever come across a Vicuna? Well, I'm half Spanish, half Peruvian. And the Vicuna is in the coat of arms of the Peruvian flag. Back then, I knew that the Vicuna was an important animal, but it wasn't until many years later that I understood the real value of the Vicuna and the impact it has on native communities in the Andes. A few years ago, I was shopping for a sweater when I came across this beautiful golden jumper. It was reverently displayed on the shop. I had to try it on. And when I did, let me tell you, it was the softest, lightest, warmest piece of garment I've ever worn. I felt I was being hugged by angels. I had to have it. But when I went to look at the price tag, I almost got a heart attack. Boy, were those angel hugs expensive. Today, that sweater would cost about $4,000. So this led me to the question, why are products made out of Vicuna fiber so expensive? It turns out that there are only 260,000 Vicunas worldwide. And that's hardly 1% of the Kashmir goat population in Mongolia. That's nothing. So the vicuña is a very rare species. Not only that, but the vicuña is a highly desirable fiber in the luxury market because of its unique properties. It is high insulating, and it is extremely fine. This makes any product made out of vicuña extremely light, extremely soft, and extremely warm, more so than cashmere. I already told you that vicuña is native to South America. It lives in the Andes, about 4,000 meters above sea level. It is a wild species, and about 80% of the vicuña population live in Peru. In Peru, the vicuña is protected by the state. This means that the Peruvian government owns the vicuña. But if you're lucky enough to live in the same territory as the vicuña, you may apply to manage the vicuña, live shear it every 2 years, and benefit from the sale of the fiber. And this is what many native communities in the Andes in Peru already do. There are 3 companies that purchase the majority of the readily available fiber in the market, and about 90% goes to Italy. And the price paid for that fiber, while still high, it's vastly different to the price of the final product. I want to give you an example. 1 kilo of cashmere fiber will cost you about $70. 1 kilo of vicuña fiber, $600. 1 blazer made out of cashmere can cost you about $3,500. 1 blazer made out of vicuña, $12,000. You may think that those native communities are getting a very good deal out of the vicuña fiber. But the reality is that it's not enough for them to make a wealth in the region. The price paid for the fiber is not high enough, or there are not enough vicuñas. A problem that I found is that because the vicuña is a wild species, it's not domesticated, and you never really own the vicuña. If you're a poor farmer and you need to buy some medicine, and you need to go to the bank to ask for a loan, you cannot use the vicuña, your most valuable asset, as a collateral. Therefore, you cannot get the money, and you cannot improve the situation. Why would any community then bother with a vicuña? They seem to be very complicated. But the vicuña, it's very important to the fashion industry, and it's more important to those native communities. Because they're a sustainable animal. They don't uproot the grass when grazing, unlike many other domestic livestock, such as the cashmere goat. The cashmere goat, they uproot the grass when grazing, and right now in Mongolia, where they have been overexploited, vast territories of grassland have become desert. This doesn't happen with the vicuña. The vicuña has also become a considerable alternative source of income for those communities. Again, since you only live shear once every 2 years, you can keep domestic livestock for a regular source of income. And by recognizing the vicuña as a valuable resource, we can create skill development programs to enhance the knowledge of those communities and protect the species. By safeguarding the animal, we're improving the life of the herds, the people who manage the animal, and the quality of the product. We're also enhancing the steady and continuous increase of the vicuña population, and brands can buy into a higher quality product, helping the price of the product to increase at a grassroots level. I have given you the example of the vicuña because I'm passionate about it. But this can also be applied to many other natural fibers, such as cashmere, alpaca, silk, mohair, and many other natural resources that have been exploited over the years. So what can we as the fashion industry do to improve the supply chain. We need to ask for greater transparency and government support to ensure that ethical trading and protection of natural resources happen. And can I urge you to get actively involved in those activities that ensure the well-being of the species, of the people, and of the environment. Because we all have a part to play in it, and our decisions in design, in sourcing, in production, marketing, as consumers, have a direct impact on the animal and the farmer. Thank you very much.